So Ollie, one of the topics that we get quite a lot of chat about and questions on is endurance training for boulderers, and it's a little bit of a contentious subject, and people go, why should I be doing some kind of endurance? Because I'm a boulderer.
Yeah, that's always the first thing that a boulder specialist will ask is, why am I doing so much mileage? And is it actually necessary because I'm trying to get stronger and more powerful? Having come from a similar background myself, it's been an interesting journey going through that process and understanding that it is really beneficial. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, so why did you start doing endurance with boulderers?
I think for me, the whole endurance element for boulderers came from what I did with the route climbing, and I had a big background in this area, and I really found that doing that element of training really improved recovery rates. And so when I was doing any kind of hard, intense effort, if I had a background and a foundation in recovery training, really low-end endurance training, my recovery in boulders, hard power endurance, or endurance sessions themselves was a lot better.
Yeah, I think I actually found the same. When you start going into that recovery rate and focusing on how much training you can do in a block of a couple of weeks or months, that makes the bigger difference in the end. A good example of this is your top end of working at your maximal bouldering grade might drop down a little bit to begin with because you're feeling slightly fatigued, but the amount of sessions that you're completing, bouldering more frequently, means it adds up to a higher performance overall. And through doing this, we see an initial dip in performance with the boulderers, but then it consistently improves and improves beyond that, rather than hitting a plateau where they stay at the same level and have intermittent spikes of performance.
I think another thing that often, if any of you are route climbers and you come from that kind of background, is that you've got to watch out for this capacity to get into a zone where you're getting really pumped and really fatigued with your endurance training. And despite the fact that you're now specialising in bouldering, you've got to be very careful to not spend too much time in that zone, because overall this is really going to be of detriment to your performance. So be quite careful about getting into that pump zone. It doesn't seem to work out that well for the boulderers, does it?
Not at all. I mean, so the best sessions that we've found to work for any of the clients that we've worked with over the years, and this is backed up by the research into working with strength athletes, is doing very, very low end continuity style work. So very mild blood flow, no pump at all, and just getting the recovery rate. We call this regeneration most of the time. And then the other side is doing more interval style training. So you're on and off the wall. And it means the time on the wall is a little bit harder, but you're not getting pumped still. And then the time off, you're forcing recovery. And that will mean getting rid of all the waste products built up by the time on the wall. But it doesn't mean that you're doing 4 or 5 minutes at a high intensity.
Yeah, I think that's, really sound points there. And it's kind of always interesting to see the difference between mine and yours background, and how we've come up with a kind of a combination or a hybrid in the middle, where we hit the sweet spot of knowing what we can take from route climbing, but also how can we deal with that for boulderers and still bring about effective performance. So yeah, it's always nice to hear your opinion on this stuff as well.
Yeah, and I think we've had so many clients over the years go through this process. It's now quite nice to have the confidence to say this is the way forward. And you might get the rare occasion where people feel that it doesn't work for them, but just the consistency of this type of training always seems to pay off.
Yeah, no, definitely.
To check out any more of the discussions on any training topics, subscribe to our YouTube channel.